So hello and welcome to America Can We Talk? I'm Debbie Georgatos. Today, we're going to talk about chloroquine death lies, an interview with Dr. Robert Epstein on how big media contorts elections, the official COVID-19 numbers in America, and finally, U.S. more prepared for the pandemic than any other country. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth. America Can We Talk is sponsored by GC Works, a Dallas-based company performing advanced technology research in the oil and gas industry.
So welcome again to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I'm Debbie Georgatos. There was a very unfortunate case in Arizona of a man and his wife, a couple, who heard President Trump speaking about the possibility that a particular drug that has in the past been manufactured, in fact approved by the American FDA for treatment of malaria, how that drug may also prove to be effective in fighting the coronavirus. And so there's been, as soon as this President Trump, of course, as soon as he ran that story and spoke about that, the radical left, anti-American, the Democrat media mob pounced on him. And how can he say this? And how can he mislead us? This is ridiculous. This couldn't be true, blah, 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 blah. So what happened was the media's running this story and mischaracterizing what President Trump said, and an Arizona man and his wife died after ingesting chloroquine phosphate. And let me make something clear. The drug that may or may not be effective, it appears it may, in fact, some tests have shown it was effective in treating some people who were suffering from the coronavirus. But the name of the drug that the people consumed was chloroquine phosphate. This is a cleaning product they used for their fish tank, for their aquarium they had at home. The wife literally heard something on the news about chloroquine, said, hey, doesn't that sound like the thing we use for our fish tank cleaner, our aquarium cleaner? So they ingested a small amount of this product, chloroquine phosphate, mixed it with some water, and drank it. So they both became very ill. And sadly and unfortunately, the husband passed on. They did get to the hospital. Husband passed on. Wife is very ill. And so naturally, the media, because they cannot ponder the notion of giving President Trump any credence, they look for reasons to attack and destroy him. The media went with the story right away. Oh my gosh, Trump is putting out this idiotic idea that we have a possible cure for the coronavirus. And look what happened. Some poor couple in Arizona tried it and they died. I'm very sorry that couple did that. I'm very sorry they ingested something that had a similar name to the actual drug that is potentially going to be used in treating coronavirus in America. But those are two different products, two different drugs. This couple, and again, sorry they did it. I'm sorry they did not check with their doctor, check with a local official, check with someone, but instead just chose to ingest this substance, which was their fish aquarium at their home tank cleaner product, and they drank it and they died. This has nothing to do with the potential efficacy of the chloroquine drug that President Trump has been, chloroquine drug, and that has been used effectively in France. In fact, it is a French outfit that has been doing the research, a French doctor who had tested and mixed this chloroquine with another product with the idea of actually treating people who had contracted coronavirus, and had a fabulous success rate. He had actually as against a test group and using a placebo, the group that ingested this product, this testing doctor in France used, actually had positive results, actually found people recovered from coronavirus. And I am spending the first five on that story just to say the media lives and dies to destroy President Trump, to mock, to ridicule. He did not ever tell people this is what you should do in your home. He did not advise people to go get the product they use to clean their fish aquarium at home and ingest it themselves. This unfortunate passing of the couple in Arizona does not in any way undermine the very positive potential that there may be some product, some drug already approved by the FDA in treating malaria may be potentially efficacious in helping people recover from coronavirus. In fact, as the coronavirus spreads, people are observing that in countries where malaria is common, and therefore where this anti-malaria drug is common, they have far fewer cases so far of coronavirus. So wrapping it up, I just want to say there's just a world of effort on the American left to whatever possible good news comes out about handling coronavirus, testing numbers that are good, recovery numbers that are good, stories that people recover. If anything good comes out, the left is ready to pounce, the left in the form of the mainstream media, ready to pounce to claim that there really isn't any reason for hope. As a matter of fact, this is the most dismal, ridiculous, extreme disease, and nothing, there's no good to ever come. It's just a darkness that the left has become engulfed in, honestly and sadly, with the hope of having this horrible pandemic around the world somehow be their magic pill to take President Trump out. They've tried effort after effort after effort, making clear, I'm not saying that the coronavirus pandemic or epidemic is a hoax. I am saying the left is using this pandemic to try to destroy President Trump. It's exactly what they're doing. It is what they have done on issue after issue, finding some way to remove a popular president whose policies are working, whose policies are bringing back the American economy, the roaring economy we had until the last couple of months, due entirely to the policies President Trump has followed, which are basically the free market policies that everyone knew worked for so long, that the left fights so hard because the left, heaven forbid, they have to support free market policies. And that, my friends, is today's First Five. As I told you at the beginning of the show today, we have a great guest joining us. In fact, we've talked about him on this show before, and today we have the great pleasure of having him join us by phone. I'll tell you briefly, introduce you to him. His name is Robert Epstein, Dr. Robert Epstein, and he is someone whose name you might recognize because he was the individual testifying in the United States Senate in an exchange back and forth with Senator Cruz on the subject of to what degree and how Google and other social media can orchestrate or manipulate the outcome of elections. But before we bring him on, I'll tell you other things about him. He is an American psychologist, a professor, author, journalist, has a PhD in psychology from Harvard University. He's been a commentator all over the place, National Public Radio, Voice of America, and even Disney Online. He's a writer, but the reason that many Americans became aware of him is because of what he learned and discovered during the 2016 elections concerning the ability of Google to manipulate people's thought about elections. So I believe we have Dr. Robert Epstein available. Hello, sir.
Hi there.
Dr. Epstein, I just want to, first of all, I mentioned to you before we started today, many people comment. In fact, I believe I played this segment on my show before of your testimony in front of in the United States Senate, in front of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution in July of 2019. But I want to have you start by just explaining to our listeners what you discovered about the ability of Google to manipulate the views and opinions of voters that actually may have impacted the election of 2016. Tell us all about it.
Well, sure. There's two kinds of activities that I've engaged in that really tell the story of the power that Google and some other companies have to shift opinions and votes on a massive scale. So one part of what I've done has to do with controlled experiments I've been conducting since early 2013. So that's a long time now. And these experiments show that if one candidate is favored in search results, and people can't see that, I mean, you can't look at a bunch of search results and tell and see that they favor one candidate over another. You'd have to click on all the search results and look at the web pages, and then you'd have to kind of compare the web pages. People don't do that, obviously. But the point is, if indeed one candidate is favored, people trust those high-ranking search results so much because they're coming from Google and because they're generated by a computer, so they must be objective, that whichever candidate is favored ends up shifting the opinions and the voting preferences, not of everyone, but of the undecided voters. And of course, the undecided voters in close elections, they decide who wins. That's why so much money pours into the so-called swing states in the months and weeks leading up to an election. The point is that search results alone, biased search results, can easily shift 20% or more of undecided voters up to 80% in some demographic groups. And that's after one search. So, Google is, if they're hitting people with biased search results over and over, multiple times a day for many weeks, obviously they can have an enormous impact on the outcome of an election. I calculated that as of 2015, because a lot of elections are very close, Google's search algorithm was determining the outcomes of upwards of 25% of the elections in the world. And I'm sure that percentage is higher now. But there's a second kind of thing I've done as well, and that is to measure directly the bias in the search results that Google, Bing, and Yahoo were showing people both in the 2016 election and the 2018 election. So I set up the first ever monitoring systems. They're called passive monitoring systems because no one knows that they're running and Google can't see them. And those systems are kind of like the Nielsen ratings. The Nielsen company has families and their identities are secret, and Nielsen has some special equipment in their homes that allows Nielsen to track, their television watching. And I developed similar kinds of technology that allowed us to basically look over the shoulders of a diverse group of American voters in 2016 and 2018 and see what Google, Bing, and Yahoo were showing people. And we found in both of those elections very strong liberal bias. And I am pretty much a liberal, and I like liberals. My whole family, they're all liberals. But that bias was enough to have shifted in 2016 between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes to Hillary Clinton, whom I supported, without people knowing and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace. In 2018, that bias that we measured, if that had been present nationwide, that would have shifted upwards of 78.2 million votes to Democrats. That would have been spread across hundreds of elections, but still, again, this is occurring without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail. This is an extremely dangerous kind of power that these companies have. It's basically subliminal influence occurring on a massive scale.
That's interesting to use the word subliminal. That is so funny because when you were speaking, I was thinking about that, how people who are impacted by this don't know that it's happening. They don't realize. They think they're, as you said a few minutes ago, when people search on Google and other places, the assumption, unless you're familiar with your research or generally speaking with the conduct of some of the social media companies, you assume you asked it a question and you just got straight answers. And so again, I want to be clear on a couple of things because the numbers are kind of amazing that you were just saying. I believe I was taking notes correctly, but in the 2016 presidential election, this bias on the part of Google, and this is in response to search result inquiries, may have shifted between 2.6 to 10.4 million votes toward Hillary. That's simply staggering. Okay, and these are distributed geographically, or they're mainly is Google operating in this way, mainly in swing states, in places where they really could change things?
Well, in 2016, we had 95, we call them field agents, in 24 states. We weren't singling out swing states exactly, but we were concerned to see whether that bias was occurring maybe just in blue states and not in red states. In fact, it was occurring in both blue and red states. So there was a pro-Hillary bias in all 10 search positions on the first page of Google search results in both blue and red states, and no such bias occurred on Bing or Yahoo. It was just Google. And of course, Google is all that counts, since more than 90% of search is done on Google, and the next biggest search engine, Bing, only draws about 2% of search.
Is that right? I was actually going to ask you, Bing is the one I've heard people say, well, if you're upset about Google being so biased, go with Bing, but it's not particularly impactful if it's only 2%. So do the people who work at Google or the representatives of Google, when they became aware of your research, do they acknowledge that this exists, or do they refute everything you're saying?
Well, the official statements from the company always simply refute over and over again, all of the various public statements I've made and the publications, that I've published and so on. They just keep denying. They just deny over and over again. But at this point, we have another source of evidence beyond my own research, and that is we have whistleblowers, we have leaks of emails, we have leaks of documents and leaks of videos, and all of those simply confirm what I have been warning people about since 2012 in one way or another. And all of these leaks and the whistleblowers are confirming what I have been saying. I'll just give you a quick example. In 2016, I published a very long investigative piece for U.S. News and World Report, and it was called The New Censorship. And it was about 9 of Google's blacklists, because that's one of the ways that Google controls opinion, is by censoring, that is, suppressing content. They suppress content that they don't like, period. And a lot of that is, in fact, conservative content. They sometimes suppress progressive and socialist content as well. They do whatever they want to do. But the point is, I wrote this long article back then about 9 of Google's blacklists. I had never seen them, and Google never acknowledged having such things. When I testified before Congress last summer, right before me, a representative of Google testified, and he was asked under oath by one of our senators, does Google have blacklists? And he said under oath, no, Senator, we do not. Now, the fact is, a few months later, Zach Voorhees, who had been at Google as a senior software engineer for 8.5 years, walked out of Google. This was a few months after that hearing, walked out of Google with 950 pages of documents and a video. And among those documents were 2 of Google's blacklists, and they were actually called blacklists. Now that's just silly. I mean, they should have called them something else. But the point is, I was stunned. I mean, here was confirmation. Undeniable. I mean, confirmation of what I've been warning about for years. So the point is, at this point we have at least 3 sources of evidence. We have my experiments now, which have involved now tens of thousands of people in multiple countries, involving 4 national elections or 5 national elections, I think, at this point. And we have my monitoring projects from 2016 and 2018, and we also now have the whistleblowers' documents and videos from Google itself.
So when you were testifying in the United States Senate, and you had that famous exchange with Ted Cruz, who I thought was entertaining because he actually asked And just to confirm for everyone, you are a Hillary Clinton supporter, and you said, yes, I am. I mean, that was really, it gives so much validity, first of all, obviously, to what you've uncovered. And also, just I want to commend your integrity, because I think that a lot of people, if they're very politically minded, in fact, many people I think on the left do recognize that the mainstream media is biased, Google's biased, but they kind of like the bias, so they just think, well, that's, hey, yay for us. We've got a little leg up there. So I really commend your integrity. But I want to ask you, so you're in testifying in front of Congress, was there some goal you were aware of that the Judiciary Committee or the Congress was looking at, a legislative goal to try to fix this problem, or was it just to expose it?
Well, that's a tricky matter. There are certainly individual members of Congress on both sides of the aisle who are very concerned about the almost obscene power now that big tech companies have to influence opinions, attitudes, beliefs, purchases, votes. So there are definitely some individual members of Congress who are deeply concerned and who are talking about that. Now, that's very different, of course, from introducing legislation that might make matters a bit better. There doesn't seem to be any prospect of that occurring. I had a 4-hour private dinner with Senator Cruz a month or so, or a couple of months, I guess, after that hearing. We had a fantastic discussion. The man is extremely smart, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. We didn't talk politics. We talked about technology. He gets it. I mean, he really understands what's going on here. But basically, the impression I get from all members of Congress with whom I've been communicating is that there just isn't going to be any legislation for a variety of reasons. As Tucker Carlson put it when I was on his show, the Republicans, generally speaking, don't like regulation, so there's a problem. And the Democrats are being helped by these companies, especially Google, not just with money, but with votes. I mean, how do you escape from this? It's like a puzzle box that has no solution. How do you get out of this puzzle box? It's
Yeah, I was going to say that one reason I'm so grateful you could join me today. One reason that we were able to connect was because we heard you, my husband and I heard you speak at a conference. And among the things that I understood you to be talking about was some idea that you could potentially, Dr. Robert Epstein and others with whom you work, you could monitor in the 2020 election cycle, which is now, impending, it's on us, at least monitor Google's conduct with the notion of at least sharing with America afterwards, all the monitoring in place. Here's how much Google swayed this election. Am I remembering that correctly? That was the idea. And then but even if you did it and you got tremendous proof that there just is an incredible and illicit bias in search results, I don't know what you still would, or anyone would still want Congress to do. I personally, I wish you could come up, not you, but people could come up with a solution that's an antitrust solution. I know many smarter people than I have talked about trying to look at an antitrust solution, but describe, if you would, what you would do if you had unlimited resources to try to fix this problem.
Well, first of all, there is no antitrust solution. I guarantee you that. I've been working with the attorneys general for multiple states since 2015, and that's what they're focusing on. That won't work. There really are no regulatory solutions, and in fact, not even any, legislative solutions to this problem. What will work is very aggressive monitoring. In other words, doing to these companies what they do to us. They're surveilling us and our children 24/7 in hundreds of different ways. Most people are unaware of how extensive the surveillance is. We can do the same to them. And so the concept for the 2020 monitoring project is actually far, far, far more ambitious than what you just described, because we're trying to develop the capability of monitoring what these companies are showing people, and even what they're telling people through personal assistants, such as Alexa, and the Google Assistant and Siri, we are developing the capabilities of monitoring more than a dozen different kinds of very subtle, largely subliminal manipulations. Because search results, that was my first discovery. I've made quite a number of other ones since then. In fact, I'm now devoting a lot of resources to studying what we're calling a YME, or the YouTube manipulation effect, which is probably more powerful than any of the other effects I've discovered over the years, because 70% of the videos people are watching now on YouTube around the world are suggested by Google's top secret Up Next algorithm. 70% of the videos people are watching are suggested by Google's algorithm. YouTube is part of Google. That means Google is taking people, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people every day down rabbit holes.
Yep.
And imagine watching a whole sequence of videos that favor one candidate or favor one cause. Imagine the power you have to shift opinions. People have been radicalized by watching a sequence of YouTube videos. I mean, that we know for sure. The point is, the 2020 monitoring system, in theory, would not only be studying a very wide range of these manipulations, but we will be analyzing the data, a massive amount of data, as it is coming in, as we're collecting it, and we will, whenever we detect irregularities, bias, manipulations of any sort, we will report them, perhaps every single day in the months and weeks leading up to the election. We'll report them to the Federal Election Commission, to members of Congress, to the media, and we will get these companies to back off. We can stop them. I know how to do it, but there is a funding problem here, and the coronavirus has really gotten in the way. I mean, we were on the verge of having full funding just a few weeks ago, and everything at this point is on hold, or as someone told me recently, all the oxygen in Washington, D.C. is now being taken up by the coronavirus.
Well, speaking of coronavirus, we've been talking about Google's manipulation of search results that impact election outcomes, the 2016 presidential, many other elections. But Google could do the same thing in shaping public opinion about the danger of the coronavirus, how well it's being handled by the current administration. They can manipulate public thought on almost any topic. Is that correct?
Yes, Google is not only a threat to democracy around the world, it's also a threat to human autonomy. We've shown in controlled experiments that biased search results can shift people's opinions about just about anything. We've done it with attitudes on homosexuality, on fracking, and anything we've tried, we're able to produce these shifts as long as we're starting out with people who are undecided on a particular issue. And of course, Google knows who those people are. Google has histories on us. If you've been using the internet for 20 years, they have more than 3 million pages of information on you. They know exactly
on each person.
On each person.
Oh my gosh.
3 million pages of information on each person, including me and including you.
Yeah.
And they know exactly who the undecided voters are. They know who's going to vote and who's not going to vote. In each swing state, they're not only doing targeting, they're targeting individuals. They know everything. They know more than people know about themselves. So the kind of targeting no other entity in the world, no other company, no government could possibly do. They're doing targeting at the individual level using subliminal methods that no one can detect and that do not leave a paper trail. The only way to stop them is with aggressive monitoring. Now, whether or not the funding will appear at this point, I don't know. And again, the coronavirus has just gotten in the way. It's really troubling.
Oh, it's very troubling. So one last question for you. This is fascinating. I so appreciate you're able to spend time with us today. So if you're an American citizen who realizes what Google is doing, besides, people can share this video and tell their friends, is there anything people can do? Because I do think that even people who are really politically engaged and taking the time to look things up on the internet and to understand an issue better or a candidate better, no one likes the feeling of being duped or played or manipulated. So is there anything, and this is a terribly open-ended question, but anything besides supporting your project and letting people know about the project you'd like to undertake, anything people can do to fight back against it?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned support, because people can go to mygoogleresearch.com. That's mygoogleresearch.com, and they can learn more about my work, and they can support my research there through that link. The main thing at this point, I mean, as individuals, there's not too much we can do. There are ways to use the internet so you have more privacy, and I've written about that. I explain how to do that at a different link, which is my7simplesteps.com.
Is that seven spelled out SEVEN?
Either way, it should get you to the correct article that I've written, and which is about how you can most definitely increase your privacy. In fact, I begin the article by saying that I have not received a targeted ad on my computer or my mobile phone since 2014. So you can use the internet, a little differently if you want to protect your privacy and the privacy of your children. That's doable. But these larger issues of surveillance, massive surveillance, of censorship, and of course manipulation, those are tough for us as individuals to handle. And in my opinion, because tech moves so fast and has, of course, so much power to influence, our nation's leaders, I don't think that regulation or legislation is going to help us very much. I think we must set up very aggressive monitoring systems. Monitoring systems are tech. Tech can keep up with tech, you see? And I think these systems need to exist around the world, not just to protect us from Google, but from the next Google and the next one after that. In my mind, that is the ultimate solution to the problem. That's the ultimate protection that we can use to keep these companies in check. At the moment, as far as I can tell, democracy is little more than an illusion, because in the 2020 election alone, Google and the gang will be able to shift easily 15 million votes to whichever candidate they choose, which means that President Trump, and I'm not a Trump supporter, which means that President Trump cannot possibly win. When you take into account the kind of individual targeting that Google can do, but in a way no one else possibly can, and the fact that 97% of their donations go to Democrats, unless a monitoring system is running, which would make the election obviously much more fair, and would get these companies to back off, unless there is that kind of system running, President Trump cannot win re-election. It's literally statistically impossible. Now, although I'm not a Trump supporter, let me say that under Obama in his second term, Google took over Washington, D.C. And the investigations that were ongoing, antitrust investigations that were ongoing against Google, Obama shut them down literally within the first few weeks of his second term. By the end of his term, 6 federal agencies were being run by former Google executives. Now, since Trump has come into office, that's all changed. There are now multiple investigations ongoing against Google and other companies by the Federal Trade Commission, Department of Justice, attorneys general, various committees in Congress. Very, very aggressive investigations are in progress under Trump. The first thing that will happen when the Democrats basically sweep Washington, D.C., is that all of these investigations will be shut down, and Google and other companies will consolidate their power, and we might never, ever be able to challenge them.
Well, I am so glad for the kind of work you're able to do, the talent and skill and knowledge you bring to it so that you can share information like this. I encourage people, again, I want to ask you again, Dr. Epstein, that website they can go to read more of your research and also to support what you're doing. I would love to have more Americans feel invested, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, but feel invested in trying to insist on legitimacy and fairness and to the extent possible, lack of bias in Google. So the one website you said to read your research is mygoogleresearch.com. Okay, I love that. And then is that where they can go to support what you're doing also?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, love that. And Dr. Epstein, I appreciate what you're doing. Again, I commend your integrity. And I think everyone, to me, the sense of being played and manipulated and figuring out later, wait a minute, they just steered me down a path versus giving me the truth, should make many more people want to rise up and protest what's going on and support what you're doing. So, sir, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you very much for a very stimulating set of questions. I really enjoyed it.
Same to you, sir. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it too. And that, my friends, was Dr. Robert Epstein. And again, I encourage you, this is an amazingly important issue for Americans to understand, not just because of the 2020 elections, but even moving forward from that, what people think is true about a host of issues, what people think is true about candidates, elected officials, coronavirus, and immigration policy. If you're being manipulated and fed the answers that somebody else wants, you're really being deprived of your own right to research and understand and form your own opinion. So I urge you to support Dr. Epstein. And sir, again, thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
The next topic I wanted to hit today, and I'm so glad, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dr. Epstein. He's really quite an American treasure. Imagine a Hillary supporter pointing out that the Google determines outcomes of elections and tries to give positive results to the Democrats, and including Hillary. Great guy. So glad we have him on. I want to turn and talk about this official COVID numbers in America. And I mentioned on Tuesday in this show that I had been part of a call just before we went on air on Tuesday. I've been part of a call with our lieutenant governor in Texas and getting some real straight data from him. And I want to share that data. But first, I want to start just by telling you that, and again, everyone understands that all of us are committed to fighting the spread of the coronavirus. Everyone understands we have to stop the spread of the virus. We have to do what we can to fight the spread of the virus. So we are following all the instructions that everyone by now knows about washing your hands and social distancing and all the things we know to wiping down surfaces and spraying them, keeping things super clean. Everyone understands this. But we have gotten drawn in to an emotional reaction to the coronavirus, in large part or in significant part because so many media outlets are trying very hard to in the positive way to say it. You can say the media is trying to be of assistance to the public health officials who are trying to warn Americans to be conscientious, to don't ignore the instructions, follow the rules you're supposed to follow, be careful, all that kind of stuff. So you have well-intentioned people in the public health arena trying to make sure every American understands the seriousness of this virus, and it is new. We don't have reasons, we don't have ways in place in America like we have to deal with seasonal flu because it's a new strain. We don't have the vaccine yet. We don't have enough testing kits. We don't know if we're going to have a drug. This anti-malaria drug seems to be something may be helpful, but we don't have a drug yet in terms of helping people recover from it. So a lot of unknowns to it and a lot of suspicion about how it got to America, what China's role was. But because all those elements surround the way people are reporting on the coronavirus and surround the way that people in America are receiving the news and handling it. But part of what's happened is an epidemic of fear, an epidemic of panic, an epidemic of saying this vision that we're all going to die, and projections created. We talked about this a few days ago on the show or last week. Projections created by people who are looking at numbers in other countries that have very different health habits, very different demographic attributes to their populations, such as Italy, where the population is much older on average. On average, more people smoke in Italy, therefore have more lung problems and weakened immune systems. We have all sorts of reasons that data from other countries doesn't necessarily apply in total to America, but we have these prognostications in this country that are talking about the spread of the virus, and it becomes easiest for people in authority to go with the most extreme reaction possible because they are told by experts, well, if you don't go with this extreme reaction, and then you do have a really big pandemic and a really big number of people killed who die from it, you're responsible. You're going to be responsible. So the safest thing for any elected official in this country, the safest thing to avoid the slings and arrows that will inevitably flow from the mainstream media if there is a bigger problem than we're hoping, the safest thing for elected officials to do is to go with the most extreme measure possible. The most extreme. So here in Texas, in our county, Dallas County, we're in the shelter-in-place rule. This exists around the country. Businesses are shut down, and people are reading these prognostications that are based on other countries' experiences and thinking worst-case scenario in America is this, compounded with the go-to reaction of anyone in public office is take the safe course. The safest course is the most extreme course to shut everything down. This is what we are watching happen in America, including in America, having, as we mentioned in the show on Tuesday, when Connie Burton was on our show, she is the founder of the Texan magazine, but in Dallas County, the information put out by our Dallas County officials who made the decision that we must have a shelter-in-place rule, they used data not from the CDC, not from a state official, not from any official source, but by a private, and in my view, fear-mongering entity that gave them just ginormous numbers of predictions of cases contracted and people hospitalized and people dying. So the safest reaction they felt was to have a pretty much shut down order. I want to introduce in this segment just a few numbers to keep in mind. I am not giving you these numbers because I'm suggesting that we should all ignore the coronavirus. Everyone understands and everyone is following the social distancing and the hand washing and everything else. But it's still permissible for people to have a conversation, to have data points to compare. So the coronavirus, this is data actually from the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, our official government entity. Our government, the CDC, is saying in America, in our country, in America, we have total number of cases, 44,000 people have been diagnosed with coronavirus. 44,000 people. So those are people who've been diagnosed in this country. And this is between, by the way, January 12th and March 23rd in this country. Of those numbers of people who have contracted coronavirus, now I actually can't find it because I'm trying to do it quickly. Of those people who have contracted coronavirus, we have, as of oh my gosh, this is going to bug me. This is in 54 jurisdictions. Okay, yeah. Total cases in the entire country, 44,000. Total deaths in America that are justifying the shutdown of our economy, 544. 544 deaths since January through March in this country from coronavirus. I'm not saying those lives don't matter. I'm not saying that I don't care about those deaths. I want, however, to compare those numbers to the numbers the CDC also puts out about the regular flu. The flu, we are in flu season. People get the flu in America every year. So the coronavirus flu, again, 544 deaths. How many deaths do you think there have been in America in this flu season this year? The lowest number, CDC gives a very wide range. The lowest number is 23,000 deaths this year from regular flu. 23,000 regular deaths from regular flu, and their ranges 23,000 to 59,000, so big range there. But so somewhere in there, the low end being 23,000 compared with the deaths from coronavirus, 544. And I raise that to say, in flu season, everyone knows every year when flu season comes, everyone knows that a fewer than half of adult Americans get the flu shot. Is something like 37% of Americans get the flu shot, of adult Americans. And in numerous cases, it's something like half the people who get the flu shot still get the flu. So the shot doesn't even prevent the flu. We do not shut down the country over these flu cases. We do not shelter in place. We do not close down all businesses. And yet the flu season in America, happening right now, far bigger consequence. And in addition to, again, coronavirus, we have total cases in this country, 44,183 to be precise. 44,183 cases of coronavirus. And on the flu virus, in this year, in America, according to the CDC, illness from the flu between 38 and 54 million Americans. Just think about those numbers. And I feel like I have to say this 6 times. I am not saying we shouldn't be cautious. I am not saying that we should refuse to follow the protocol to try to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. I am saying if you can't see that the American left is using this coronavirus as a political weapon to clobber President Trump with, they are fine with the shutdown of our economy, shutdown of businesses, the grinding to a standstill, the harming of everyday Americans who can't go to work, can't earn a paycheck, can't pay their rent, can't pay their mortgage. We're doing all of that for this relative number, a minuscule percentage of people in this country who have even contracted coronavirus. And now I want to share some data from my phone call with the Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, which this was on a call on Tuesday, just a few minutes before we started our show on Tuesday. So we have tested by the way, in terms of our testing in America, we have tested in our country, and I was handwriting, while I was trying to listen to the call. We have tested more people in America in absolute numbers. We've tested more people in America in the last 8 days than the country of South Korea tested in 8 weeks. We are testing. We are making a priority testing for people who are either of a certain age, whatever, I think it's 65 or older, or have a pre-existing condition. But in most places, like in Texas, where you can get drive-through testing, you must exhibit a fever. If you don't have a fever, you can't even get tested. So you have to have a fever, and then you have to fall into one of the categories, which are over a certain age, having some immune deficiency issue, or if you are a first responder type person, you are able to get tested. Even if you're not in the senior citizen or the immune deficiency issues, you can get tested. Point is, of course, the testing we're going to do now and the next few weeks is going to have the number of cases spike. Clearly, obviously, because we're only testing people who already feel sick. We're not testing the broad population. It'd be nice if we could, if we had enough coronavirus, test kits around, we could test everyone, and that would give us a more conclusive answer. But right now, the bias in testing is the sick people are getting tested. Again, right here in Texas, where we have massive shutdown of Dallas County, we have statewide orders. We have had 9 deaths from coronavirus in the state of Texas. 9. And yet we are shut down. We have in 254 counties in Texas, we have over 200 of them have 0 reported cases of coronavirus. Over 200 of the 254 counties in Texas have no cases of coronavirus. And so we have Everyone cares about everyone. We don't want people getting sick, but we need to have our response, and especially our response that shuts down commerce and shuts down a culture. We have to have it somewhere in the ballpark of relevant and relative and related to, correlated to the actual situation on the ground. Last statistic, at least from that call, in the testing in Texas, 99% of people tested got found to be negative, tested, and the answer was no, you don't have coronavirus. I lay these numbers out just to encourage you to not get on the pandemic of fear, the outbreak pandemic of panic and fear that is gripping this nation. We are being responsible. We are taking care of people. We do not have to continue the economy being ground to a halt, especially as we're putting into place the kind of measures we are, and urging people to understand that we are not actually in this country in the kind of panic that we don't need to be in the panic we are. We can be responsible, and we can be and take great care of our people without shutting down our economy. Last, and I'm almost out of time on the show today, but last topic I want to hit very briefly. I mentioned this on Tuesday, but I thought it was worthy of reiterating. Understand that, and this is not a headline and not a clip from a Donald Trump speech, but you might think it was. The headline says, the U.S. was more prepared for a pandemic than any other country on earth. And that headline from Johns Hopkins University. There's been so much effort to politicize the coronavirus in this country, so much effort to use the outbreak in this country as a means, as a justification to attack President Trump, to attack the Republican administration, to belittle our precious public health system, which is actually doing a fabulous job. As we touched on a few days ago in the show, we have private companies in America jumping up and saying, hey, we understand there's a shortage of masks. We can make masks. We'll start right away. Other companies jumping up, calling the White House and saying, hey, we'll make ventilators. We can do that. We can adjust our manufacturing. We're on it. We have private industry jumping into place. We have the American citizens following protocol, doing what they're supposed to do, in large part. Yes, there are some people who weren't, and they were called out on media and of all sorts and criticized that I think more and more Americans are following the protocol. Everyone is doing a really good job in our country dealing with this pandemic, this issue of the coronavirus. Everyone in the country. I'm telling you, from neighbors in our neighborhood, it's probably happening every place in this country. We have people putting out on little community blogs, hey, I'm going to grocery stores. Anyone shut in? Could I run by the store for you? I'm happy to leave groceries on your porch. We have senior citizens tapping into our little blog in our neighborhood saying, hey, I kind of need groceries. And I mean, the people are lined up to help. This is a good country full of good people with a fabulous public health system, a wonderful and very responsive federal government, and including especially Donald Trump leading this effort to fight the virus. We are doing well in this country fighting the virus. We need to, of everything we're listening to in this country, stop listening to the left, who spends all of their time trying to find some way to parse some new statement by President Trump, some tiny excerpt from a speech, some little bit of data to again attack the president. We need more people on the side of America, and we need to have the voices of the left who cannot stop undermining and delegitimizing and criticizing his president be told from America, we're sick of hearing it. Please stop talking to us. Please stop. America's doing well handling this virus. We're going to continue doing well because we all understand we love this country. We love life. We love our health. We want our senior citizens and those who are vulnerable, everyone to be protected. And we can still have America the great, America the free, America the bustling free market economy and fight this virus. We can do all of that. And friends, as I meant to mention, I think I mentioned earlier in the show, this is our effort at doing my show from home, because we do have in Dallas, Texas, a shelter-in-place rule. So, you know, the show maybe we did our best. We're going to continue doing the show Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Time. We're doing the show. We're going to make it work every day because I love this time with you. I love talking with you every day. I thank you for tuning in to America Can We Talk every Monday through Thursday Central Time. I love all the ways you can help on social media. I invite you to support this show by subscribing to our newsletter. Go to americacanwetalk.org, click on subscribe. You can subscribe to our newsletter. I will be happy to send that out. I send out every Friday. I'd love if you subscribe if you follow on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Twitter and like our page on Facebook and share the show. This is the way we have the old-fashioned in the taverns and town squares conversations we had at the time of the founding of America. Modern podcasts, modern social media. This is how we do it now. Thank you for listening. We'll return right now to talk about why the stories we talked about today matter to you. And so to start, our first story for today, we talked about on the show today, the chloroquine death lies. An American man died from ingesting fish tank cleaner with a chemical name that includes chloroquine, but it was not the anti-malarial drug Trump and others have cited. Tragic validation of the age-old wisdom, use only as prescribed by your doctor. But mainstream media headlines suggest death caused by drug touted by Trump. This is mainstream media malice toward Trump on a scale hard to believe. It's inexcusable. It ought to be legally actionable. They are outright deliberate lies. And the lies hurt real people, and they deny what appears to be legitimate hope. Americans must recognize that mainstream media, Trump derangement syndrome, is damaging America. Americans must tune out the mainstream media to force accountability. And on the COVID-19 numbers in this country, ponder this data from America's CDC. Regular flu season stats for America in 2019 and 2020, estimated cases between 38 and 54 million, estimated deaths 23,000 to 59,000. That's regular flu. And here we are in the middle of this COVID-19 statistics for America. Again, these are statistics that were available as of March 24th. COVID-19 stats in America, 2019-2020, estimated cases 44,000, actual deaths 544. This is a necessary and responsible question. Is a complete shutdown of America's economy for this? That's what we're shutting it down for. And last, on Johns Hopkins, U.S. more prepared than all, and why it matters to you. We talked about it on Tuesday. I just had to share it again. Be wary of mainstream media themes condemning American response. They're mostly Trump derangement syndrome on display. America woefully unprepared. Government response under Trump, pathetic. These are mainstream media attacks on Trump. Preparation is necessarily imperfect for unprecedented challenges. Unprecedented means it never happened before. Improvement is always possible and desirable, but the strength and sophistication of America's healthcare system and our public health system and pandemic response towers over every other country relative to population and geography. Johns Hopkins University, hardly a Trump administration mouthpiece, pronounced America is more prepared for a pandemic than any other country. And that, my friends, is America Can We Talk for today. By the way, I meant to mention to also email me at americacanwetalk@gmail.com. I love the American political conversation about preserving the most precious, extraordinary experiment in human liberty ever to bless this earth, and that is America. And that's why I talk about America in the show every day. I talk about America because America matters. And I'll talk to you next time.
Can you hear us now?
America, Can We Talk? Truth about America.
Can you hear